My name is Gary Lozano. I'm a senior partner at RDG Planning and Design. Politics with consultant planning have to do probably mostly with the substance of your recommendations. Let me give you an example. I did a zoning ordinance for Washington County, Iowa. Washington County, Iowa has never had a zoning ordinance. They don't have a building code either, by the way. And so there's a lot of growth pressure because they're just south of Johnson County, which is Iowa City. A lot of demand. Johnson County is pretty restrictive on how they allow single-family homes to be built out in the county. Basically, they discourage that. So a lot of that demand goes down to Washington County. So there was the Farm Bureau really put a lot of pressure on the county supervisors to do something about all the people that were moving into homes in the middle of their farmsteads and their farms. And so then, of course, then the people moving into those homes would start complaining about farming. But it's like, well, the farms were there first. You should have known, when you moved out of the county. So politics played a role in deciding to come up with some funds and do a new zoning ordinance. Well, I was there for 10 months. Very controversial. Most people that came to the meeting did not want a zoning ordinance. They were very strong in property rights and didn't like the idea of governmental intervention. The supervisors, as I mentioned, were under pressure from the Farm Bureau to do something, so they were in support of zoning. When I delivered the new zoning ordinance, it was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in a very controversial action. The next election cycle, all three of those council supervisors, one retired, the other two were overthrown by candidates that specifically ran on an anti-zoning platform. And so even though the politics at the time encouraged the supervisors to hire me and to do a zoning ordinance, that shifted, and the new politics kind of threw them out of office. And my understanding is they repealed zoning, so they no longer threw it out. So that's about as drastic a political impact on what I do as I can think of, where your product was accepted and adopted, and then politics intervened, and it was thrown out, and now they have no zoning. It's back to square one. Well, I'm going to use the same example in Washington County. We had monthly meetings with the steering committee, and they were open meetings, and as I said, a lot of people were opposed to the idea of governmental intervention in their lives, didn't want a zoning ordinance, didn't oppose the my being hired, and were very vocal about it. So the challenge, I would say, was a very, very vocal opposition, strong opposition to the whole idea of what I was working on. And I had a steering committee, which was a planning commission, which was favorable towards zoning. But the people that wanted to be involved, again, it's a public meeting, were very, very anti zoning, anti the project, against the project. So they kind of demanded a role in the process. My attitude typically with cities, I always tell them this: if you have somebody, there's always somebody in town that's like what we call, kind of against everything and against what you're doing, anti-planning. My approach is to say, put them on the committee. I'd rather deal directly with them and through the process and hopefully educate them about what we're doing than to have them kind of make a big splash at the end of the project. So in this case, there were all these people, maybe as many as 10 or 12, that would come every time and want to participate. So how do you do that? How do you? They're not on the committee. They don't have a formal role, but nonetheless it's a public meeting. It's actually a good problem. Most of the time when you have planning projects, you have people dropping out, and you struggle to get public input, public participation. In this case, a bunch of them voluntarily came to fight what we were doing. So actually, what my approach was to be really overly accommodating with them, and actually really nice to them, really nice with them. And And what we figured out was that we could have a regular meeting, but making sure they understood that at the end of every meeting, we're going to allow 15 minutes for anybody that's here that is not on the committee can have a say, can have time, a couple minutes apiece. We weren't going to be real strict about it, but give everybody who was there a chance to say something. And they did. So every meeting, there were these people, all these people there. They behaved themselves. They didn't disrupt the meeting. They listened. They wanted to know what was going on. They also felt like they wanted to comment. So at the end of every meeting, we gave them a time to comment. Their comments, after a while, because we had like 10 monthly meetings. After a while, they realized that they shouldn't get up every time and just say we're against zoning. I have a God-given right to do what I want with my property, and the government has no business. That got a little old after the fourth or fifth time somebody said the same thing. So they would try to comment on the substance of what we talked about that day, which was good. The end of the project, I didn't convince any of them to like zoning or to support the project. They still opposed it, but they were cordial. I think that through the process we set up, they were very cordial. And to give you an illustration, middle of winter I got there. I was running a little late, and I accidentally ran into a ditch and got my car stuck about a block from the meeting place. One of the people opposed to it that was going to the meeting saw me, pulled over, got out, helped me, went and got his brother-in-law's tractor, and pulled me out. We got to the meeting just about on time.